Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a process that's absolutely vital in the world of finance, but it mostly happens behind the scenes. We're talking about auditor appointment. And trust me, it's not just a simple hire, it's more like a professional gauntlet designed to lock in integrity from the very first moment. All right, let's get into it. I want you to think about this for a second. An auditor is basically a financial detective, right? They're brought in to scrutinize the deepest, most important parts of a company's financial health. So, how on earth do you make sure you're hiring the absolute right person for a job that important? Well, that's the exact question we're going to answer today. Believe it or not, this entire process can be laid out in a pretty neat flowchart, and that's what we're going to use as our guide, our map for today. It breaks everything down into these key stages, and each one is just packed with professional duties. We're going to walk through the whole thing step by step. So here's the game plan. We've got four main parts. First, we'll look at the auditor's own internal checklist. Then, we'll move on to this really critical conversation between the old and new auditors, the professional handshake. After that, we'll see how the deal gets locked in. And finally, we'll pull back and talk about why this whole thing matters so much. All right, first up, the initial checklist. Before an auditor even dreams of accepting a new client, they've got a ton of their own homework to do. Seriously, this isn't just about the company picking an auditor, it's about the auditor deciding if this company is even the right fit for them. So, the whole thing kicks off with what the flowchart calls auditor engagement. You can think of this as the starting block. It's all about the potential auditor doing their due diligence internally, long before they even agree to a meeting. And this first step involves some pretty serious self-reflection from the auditor. They have to ask themselves some tough questions. Like, is this new work something we can realistically handle? What's our gut feeling on the management's integrity? Are these people trustworthy? Are there any immediate red flags or weird issues we need to know about? And this is a huge one. Do we actually have a team with the right skills for this specific job? Also, they've got to consider the fees. Is the pay appropriate? And more importantly, does it create any conflicts that might threaten their independence? And finally, what else might be needed here besides just a standard audit? Okay, so once the new auditor has gone through their own internal checklist and they're feeling good about it, we move to the next stage, the professional handshake. This is a formal, really important ethical conversation they have to have with the auditor who's on their way out. And let me tell you, this step is absolutely non-negotiable. Now, this conversation actually has an official name, professional clearance. It's basically a direct line of communication to make sure the handover is smooth and totally transparent. The whole point is to find out if there are any professional reasons, any skeletons in the closet, why they shouldn't take the job. And this slide lays out the two sides of that handshake perfectly. It's a two-way street. On one side, the new auditor has to be the one to reach out and ask the important, sometimes difficult questions. And on the other side, the existing auditor has a professional duty to answer honestly and share anything relevant about the client. We're talking disagreements about accounting, unpaid bills, you name it. They might even let the new team look at their working papers to give them the full story. All right, so the homework's done, the professional clearance has been given. Now it's time for the final procedural step, sealing the deal. This is where all those conversations and understandings get put down on paper and made into a formal, binding contract. And that brings us to the last box on our flowchart, hammering out the terms of audit engagements. This whole stage is about one thing, clarity, documenting everything so that everybody is on the exact same page before a single piece of work gets started. The main thing that comes out of this stage is the engagement letter. This is the contract. It spells everything out in black and white. It clearly defines the purpose of the audit, it outlines what management is responsible for, and it sets all the terms for the work. Think of it as the official blueprint for the entire professional relationship. So we've walked through the how, right? All the steps. But to really get it, you have to ask why. Why go through all this trouble? And that brings us to our last section. Why this whole process matters. Because really, it's so much more than just a bureaucratic checklist. Every single step we just talked about is built on a foundation of principles that are absolutely essential for the integrity of financial markets and, our trust in them. And these are the pillars holding it all up. The entire process is designed, first and foremost, to uphold professional ethics. It's also there to protect the auditor's independence, making sure they're not swayed by anything but the facts. It sets crystal clear expectations with that engagement letter to avoid fights down the road. And when you put it all together,
All of this works to protect the public interest, because at the end of the day, investors, lenders, all of us rely on that auditor's unbiased opinion.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. After seeing how careful and structured this whole process is, what do you think is the single biggest risk a company, or an auditor for that matter, takes by trying to cut a corner or skip just one of these steps? The answer to that question really shows you how fragile and how incredibly important financial trust really is.